Okay, so today we're going to be checking out the Blood Angels chapter, a lore video done by the Templin Institute. Now, I have a very, very profound respect for the Templin Institute because they cover everything. And often they cover it very, very well. I'm interested to see what they say about the Blood Angels. I'm really interested to see if they go into the actual origins of the Blood Angels, because the Blood Angels were not always the good guys of 40k. If you were to take the two and compare them, if you took Angron's World Eaters, the Warhounds, and the Blood Angels, which were the Revenants, the two were basically side by side in terms of how they would be later viewed. The Revenants who became the Blood Angels became something noble in spirit, and the Warhounds were considered noble, but they got turned into the World Eaters. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what all is said here, and I might pause it to put in my input, but that's just me. Here we go.
In the brutal life of a space marine, there is little room for anything but the art of war. Beauty, grace, artistry, and empathy, all of these are discarded within a galaxy of only carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods. It is perhaps a miracle, then, that within one of the greatest chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, there persists a deep appreciation for these forgotten aspects, which at their core remain innately human. The warriors of this chapter were lifted up from savage beginnings, driven by ideals of humanity and hope that have endured to form the core of their creed. Within them still blazes the beauty, grace, artistry, and empathy of the great angel Sanguinius, yet now offset by a rage and ruthlessness fueled by his slaughter at the hands of the archenemy. And while the most triumphant among them can only be a pale imitation of their fallen Primarch, all have risen to meet this legacy. Those who have supped from the sanguinary chalices and survived are noble in spirit, honorable in manner, furious in battle, and worthy of the title Blood Angel. Like every Space Marine Legion, the Blood Angels were founded during the latter days of the Unification Wars and the first, faltering steps of the Great Crusade. Known then simply as the 9th Legion Astartes, they bore little resemblance to the angelic figures they would become. On Terra's bloody soil, and in the Xenos-infested moons of Jupiter, they earned for themselves a grim reputation. Though they brought to ruin some of the worst abominations left over from Old Night in order to tame Sol for their Emperor, the 9th Legion would become little more than outcasts for their savage and cruel approach to war. The process of Astartes' transformation gave each Marine an echo of the angelic features of their Primarch, still lost to them somewhere across the galaxy, but this only served to highlight the horrors they inflicted. Adopting the title of the Revenant Legion, they allowed their savagery in battle to become ever more excessive. Rumors surrounding the fate of several Imperial Army regiments assigned to their side, the hushed whispers of the brutal campaign of Ki-Baran, and their actions during the Second Siege of Urant earned the Legion the personal censor of Primarch Rogel Dawn and cemented their cruel reputation across the growing Imperium. They were not the first Space Marine Legion to cross the boundaries of conduct set forth by the Emperor. And while the 9th may never have suspected it, for a brief moment an executioner's sword hung above them, waiting for the order to cast them down, an order given only twice before. With the
that's kind of debatable on if, because while I do think one of the two lost legions was wiped out due to necessity, I think the other one got wiped out, but that's neither here nor there.
fate of the Legion in the balance came their salvation. On an arid, radiation-baked moon orbiting the world of Baal, Baal Secundus, an angel of a man had arisen to unite the tribes of his home world in peaceful coexistence. A figure of perfect features and unrivaled grace, this man was worshipped as a god, soaring above his followers on a pair of immense angelic wings. He was named Sanguinius, a lost son of the Emperor and lost Primarch of the Ninth Legion. Sanguinius had survived in the inhospitable ruins of a shattered world, and yet this had only served to refine his humanity. It is said that when he finally reunited with the Emperor of Man, he wept crystal tears from which flowers sprouted when they fell to earth.
Not accurate.
From his father, he asked only that his people be spared, knowing full well that the pious sons of Baal were not of the kind the Emperor desired for his Imperium. When the Emperor granted this request and reunited Sanguinius with his legion, it was the same empathy that drove him to see the promise in these blood-soaked killers. Refusing to acknowledge that they were beyond the hope of salvation, Sanguinius guided his...
The reason they were considered this way is, well, mainly because of the stock that they were taken from. The population that was chosen to form the Ninth, a lot of them were not exactly... Well, when Conrad Curse's Legion started its downward spiral and they were starting to just recruit, the absolute worst they could possibly find, that would be the Blood Angels in their entirety previous to meeting Sanguinius. The recruits of the Blood Angels, well, back then the Revenant Legion, or just the Ninth, typically were not exactly the cream of the crop when it came to, moral standing.
Sons to resist their deep-rooted thirst for blood and savagery, encouraging them to heighten their humanity rather than debase it. It was through this effort that they took on a new name, the Blood Angels. And it was a title they would earn, fighting at the side of Sanguinius' closest brother, the War Master Horus Lupercal. The friendship between Sanguinius and Horus was legendary, even inspiring feelings of jealousy amidst their brother Primarchs. Across the ranks of the Lunar Wolves, Horus's own legion, Sanguinius saw an example that his Blood Angels should strive to embody. By fighting at the side of the Lunar Wolves, the Ninth Legion found in themselves a new sense of honor, discipline, and even mercy. They began to hold themselves to a greater standard, and to seek more in war than simply bloodshed. As the Great Crusade neared its apex, the Legion had been transformed. Cleansed with the gore-splattered killers of the Revenant Legion, in their place stood the Blood Angels, a true brotherhood of warriors, as proud and angelic as their Primarch father. But the flaws of the Ninth Legion were rooted in its very gene seed, and for some, it was too much to overcome. Hidden from all but a select few, corruption within the Legion was slowly worming its way through their ranks. In the heat of battle, some warriors would break, plunging into an orgy of violence that recalled the nightmare days of the Revenants. Those who recovered would be shocked and disgusted by what they had done, but for others, the madness would never fade, growing deeper until all reason and sanity was gone. For these afflicted Blood Angels, all that could be done was a swift execution, often undertaken in secret by the Primarch himself. Under the study of the apothecaries, this affliction was named the Red Thirst. To Sanguinius' horror, it seemed there was little that could stem the outbreak, and the angel foresaw that it would eventually swallow his legion entirely. The War Master Horus would gain knowledge of this flaw, swearing never to reveal what he had learned. But with his fall to the ruinous powers of chaos, this oath was cast aside. Of his brothers, Horus feared Sanguinius above all.
Yes, he
and
did.
In his opening strike against the Imperium, the traitor War Master sought to use the Red Thirst to shatter the Blood Angels. Before his betrayal was revealed, the Ninth Legion was ordered by Horus to the Cygnus Cluster, lured with the promise of a cure for the Red Thirst. Here, the trap was sprung.
Now, if you're wondering why Sanguinius wouldn't have turned to the Emperor at this point with the Red Thirst, Horus didn't find out about the Red Thirst until after the events that led to the destruction of the 2nd and 11th Legions. Now, the reason that Sanguinius actually was hiding this gene seed flaw from the Emperor, because he was afraid of what would happen if it ever came to light. He was afraid of what would happen to his legion if it was discovered that they had a mutation that basically turned them into mindless killers. Um, and apparently, the damage that had been done to the 2nd and the 11th had stemmed from something very similar. Well, either one or the other had stemmed from something similar. A gene seed flaw that had devolved the sanity of the Legion. In any case, going on.
The entire system had fallen prey to the power of chaos and left overrun by their demonic hordes. Upon the twisted and mind-bending hellscape of Cygnus Prime, the Legion reached its breaking point. Kabanta, the champion of the blood god Khorne, a creature of pure rage and hatred, struck down Sanguinius and hundreds of his sons. At the sight of their Primarch wounded and seemingly dead, the Blood Angels were pushed back into the state of bestial violence they had strove for years to overcome. In that moment, the Red Thirst took hold of them by the thousands. Only with Sanguinius's reawakening were they pulled back from the brink of utter ruin, but the damage was done. Rather than finding a cure to the Red Thirst, a new shadow now lay across their souls, deeper than before and rooted in something more fundamental than simple bloodlust. The true extent of this new affliction, what would come to be known as the Black Rage, would only be fully realized with the fate of Sanguinius himself. As the Horus Heresy tore the
something else that happened in that particular event, basically Sanguinius was attempted the Chaos Gods attempted to recruit Sanguinius, and the way they were going to do this was by essentially giving him a choice between his legion's life and his own, which Sanguinius would have accepted. One of his underlings wound up making the sacrifice for him, becoming the Red Angel, which Angron was decidedly pissed about, but what can you do?
Galaxy asunder, the Blood Angels escaped the Cygnus cluster and arrived in Ultramar, the realm of the Primarch Rabute Guilliman. Guilliman offered Sanguinius the position of Emperor over his newly founded Imperium Secundus, and while Sanguinius reluctantly accepted, the Angel knew that his true fate lay with his father. In a desperate gambit, the Blood Angels plunged through the roiling warp storms that divided the galaxy. They arrived on Terra in time to man its defenses alongside the Imperial Fists, White Scars, and a myriad of other loyalist forces. Amidst the burning spires and smashed fortifications that marked the Siege of Terra, the Blood Angels fought with a courage equal to any display in human history. But despite the unrelenting fury directed upon the traitor legions and the personal slaughter unleashed by Sanguinius, the battle seemed lost. At this moment, a last, desperate gambit was played. The Emperor and his custodies made a push to end the rebellion, teleporting directly onto Horus's flagship to face the traitor War Master personally.
Gotta pause that again. Okay, the battle was not lost. Essentially, the Siege of Terror was Rogel Dorn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists, pretty much defensive masterpiece, outnumbered a ridiculous amount to 1. He held off Horus's forces until the Dark Angels fleet and the Ultramarines fleet broke into basically the Sol System. They broke through the warp storms and arrived at the Sol System. At that point, Horus dropped the shields of his command ship, and it was a direct challenge that couldn't be ignored, simply because of the fact that if Horus was allowed to, if they ignored the challenge and let Horus leave, Horus would continue the war. If they killed Horus right then and there, that would eliminate the leader of the entire army. They knew they had to take the shot. So that's why they teleported on. It wasn't to end the war while it was an attempt to end the war in a quick stroke, it wasn't out of a sense of desperation to do it. They were trying to end the war right then and there. But they had essentially won the Battle of Terra.
Sanguinius and his sons assembled beside their emperor, along with Rogel Dorn and the Imperial Fists. But the boarding parties were scattered across the ship, and Sanguinius found himself facing down his brother alone. Precisely what happened in that final confrontation has been lost, twisted by the sermons of the ecclesiarchy and the censors of the Inquisition.
No one knows.
But one thing is certain: Sanguinius had perished. When Horus was himself slain, Rogel Dawn would carry off the shattered Emperor to endure his fate within the Golden Throne, and it was left to the remaining Blood Angels to take Sanguinius's broken body away from the grasp of the enemy. In time, it would be carried back to Baal Secundus, interned in a great stasis tomb beneath their fortress monastery. This tomb would become the soul of the Blood Angels and every successor chapter they founded, a reminder that courage and sacrifice is their ultimate duty as his sons. Though Sanguinius's final moments are lost to the wider Imperium, the Blood Angels know too well the agony of that legendary confrontation. From the youngest neophyte to the most lauded veteran, the grim-hearted chaplain Astarath and the ancient commander Dante, all hold the record of these events more fundamental than any other. When the great angel died, the full extent of the Black Rage was unleashed. The Primarch's psychic death scream echoed through his sons, through time itself, so that even 10,000 years later, that anguish can still be felt. When the Black Rage takes hold of a brother in the midst of conflict or on the eve of battle, their minds are ripped from their time and taken back to this moment. Those afflicted believe themselves to be Sanguinius, or one of his proud champions, and imbued with a fraction of the strength and resilience of their Primarch. Any foe set before them appears as the arch-traitor Horus and his legions. The rage they feel is overwhelming. The Blood Angels were among the first of the remaining Loyalist legions to divide themselves into chapters in accordance with the Codex Astartes. To see their legion broken, even by their own hand, was a tragedy, but the Codex was seen not only as a source of military wisdom, but a means through which they could further hone their martial spirit and aid them in restraining their dark urges. In the 10,000 years since the fall of Sanguinius and the birth of the chapter, the Blood Angels have stayed largely true to the Codex Astartes. Yet to accommodate both the flaws in their gene seed and the character of their warriors, they have introduced many small changes and traditions. As with most Astartes legions, the Blood Angels are led by their chapter master and chapter council. The latter is made up of both the traditional chaplains, logisticians, and fleet captains found in any chapter, but these individuals often hold other titles, not drawn from the Codex, but rather the history of Baal itself. Most honored among these are the members of the Sanguinary Guard and the Sanguinary Priesthood. The Guard is made up of the chapter's finest warriors, wearing armor and bearing weapons so ancient that they might be traced back to the Siege of Terror itself. They are known for the fearsome death masks they wear, cracking with halos of light that can shake the enemy with overwhelming feelings of terror. While many chapters field similar units of elite warriors each, the role of the Sanguinary Priests are reserved for the sons of the original Legion alone. Similar to the apothecaries used by the wider Astartes, the Sanguinary Priests are deeply rooted in the blood of their Primarch and central to the traditions of the chapter. It is the priesthood that takes in raw recruits and oversees their transition to full battle brothers. They alone preserve the last drops of their Primarch's blood, weaving its essence into chalices so that their chapter might feel their father's presence or hear his voice. The Council of Bone and Blood is drawn from the priesthood, and it is this conclave that appoints a new chapter master, should one be required. Yet, those granted the positions of leadership over the Blood Angels know that theirs is a dying chapter. Among their many duties is to keep watch over their brothers for the signs of their ancient curse. Despite every effort, the Red Thirst still manifests itself in battle, a shameful act, unless it is done in the most dire of circumstances, or under the guidance of the Sanguinary Priests. For most, the Red Thirst is but a temporary fall into a feverish blood madness. It is the Black Rage that is permanent. To those wholly gripped by the dying scream of their Primarch, only the Death Company awaits. This furious and morbid brotherhood is expected to perish in battle, their bright red armor painted in the black of mourning. Shepherded into the fiercest conflicts by skull-helmed chaplains, these raging berserkers hurl themselves into the midst of their foe, whether by jump pack or drop pod, and do not rest until every enemy lies broken around them. The Death Company is perhaps what awaits every member of the chapter,
I'm
an
gonna see if he
unrestrained
mentions it.
expression of their natural, honed abilities.
I'm gonna see if he mentions it.
Even within
Let's
their
see.
regular units, however, Blood Angels have always favored close quarters combat.
Okay, he did.
Their battle companies feel
Okay, so the one that leads them is a chaplain. The one that leads the Death Company. He literally is one of the only Blood Angels that has been able to function with the Black Rage with him. He's the only one that can actually speak, and they don't know why. Most of the Blood Angels that succumb to the Black Rage, they're just mindless killers at that point. They're best just shepherded towards anything that is slightly heretical. But the guy that leads them, he can actually function. And, yeah, there's no explanation why he's the first one to be able to do it.
field far more assault marines than any Codex-compliant chapter. This ferocity is equally present in its war machines. The Baal Pattern Predator exemplifies the chapter's approach to war, trading its longer-ranged weaponry for twin-linked assault cannons, an array of flamethrowers, and a far faster and more maneuverable chassis. Most impactful, however, is the Blood Angels' approach to heavy assault. The chapter and their successors have adapted a method of rapidly deploying Land Raider tanks through daring, low-altitude runs with their Thunderhawk gunships, releasing their vehicles into the heart of the foe, while trusting in the sturdiness of the machine spirit and the resilience of their brethren to survive. This method of assault is unseen in any other chapters, even the White Scars or Space Wolves, evidence of either the incredible skill or blood-fueled insanity inherent within the Sons of Sanguinius.
A little bit of both.
This method of war, crafted by the Blood Angels Legion, has been passed down to its successor chapters. Scores of such chapters have been founded from the gene seed of the 7th Legion over the millennia. Some have upheld the reverence for humanity that Sanguinius had hoped to instill in his sons,
7th, 9th.
whilst others have only fallen further down the path to desolation. The Angels Encarmine and Angels Sanguine can both be said to strive for the values of humanity and nobility that the Primarch taught, whilst the Flesh Tearers, Blood Drinkers, and Exsanguinators have left a legacy of bloodshed and brutality to rival the old Revenant Legion. Yet, in the hopeless situation the Imperium of Man finds itself within, it is possible even Sanguinius might have realized the need for both sides of the 7th Legion's legacy. With the galaxy entering the time of ending, even the Blood Angels have found themselves pushed to their limits by the encroaching darkness. The Third Tyrannic War reached its apocalyptic conclusion on the homeworld of the chapter, and the devastation of Baal has sundered the Blood Angels like no event since the heresy. So great was the peril of their ancient homeworld that every successor chapter to the Blood Angels, save but a few, rallied together to fight again as one legion in its defense. The victory at Baal is widely attributed to the supreme abilities of Lord Commander Dante, Chapter Master of the Blood Angels, or the timely intervention of the reborn Primarch Rabute Gilliman.
I thought I was losing my mind there for a second because he kept on saying the 7th Legion. Blood Angels are the 9th. If that's the big mistake of this video, no biggie. I'm loving this.
Yet in truth, a great swath of the Tyranid High Fleet simply disappeared with the only clue to their fate uncovered on the moon of Baal Prime. Here, Tyranid skulls were piled impossibly high in the 8-pillared icon of the chapter's most ancient of foes, the bloodthirster Kabanta. A message for the chapter that their destruction would be at his hands alone. That time may be drawing near, for the largest warp storms in all existence have split the galaxy and the Imperium in two. Cut off from the light of the Astronomicon, Baal is no longer merely the homeworld of the Blood Angels, but the center of the Imperium Nihilus, upon which every hope now rests. Above Baal, a vast fleet is gathering, a newly formed battle fleet, making ready to crusade across the stars once more. At its head is Commander Dante, now regent of this dark Imperium, elevated by Rabute Gilliman himself to a level of authority unseen for millennia. Their duty is clear: to seek out every fallen world where the defenders of the Imperium cry out for salvation. This task is deadly, arduous, and impossible. But this is the very essence of the Blood Angels, the reason for which their old legion was crafted. On countless worlds across the Imperium Nihilus, though terrible powers gather in the darkness, and the Emperor's light has faded to a dim flicker, though every hope seems lost, and the victory of the Chaos God shines like a burning wound across 1,000,000 worlds, bells still toll in the night. Once each year, from the mightiest spires of temple worlds to the most humble steeples of forgotten hovels, bells are rung in the memory of a fallen angel. In these places, however dire the circumstances, a day is still taken to feast and remember. Stories are told of an imperial saint whose beauty, grace, artistry, and empathy for a brief moment lifted humanity towards the light of the Emperor, to a future more wonderful than mankind itself could ever imagine. They speak of a warrior who faced down his corrupted brother so that his father might seize victory from the anguish of defeat. But above all, tales are told of Sanguinius's avenging sons, a gleaming host of angels who, like their Primarch before them, have become the wrath of the Emperor, drowning all who take up arms against the Imperium in a scarlet tide of blood.
I can appreciate that.
The Templin
Very nice. Very nice. Like I said, Templin covers a broad variety of topics, and I'm not surprised that he left some of the things out. But that's partially the reason I watch some of this, because I like to see what I know and what I don't know. In any case, I'm hoping you guys enjoyed. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to go ahead and get this processed and put online tonight. Tomorrow, I'm not sure if I'm going to put out a video or not, because tomorrow's kind of a thing. The old man is getting older, so I will graduate to fully ancient. In any case, I'll catch you guys next time.